Merry Christmas everyone, and welcome to this tutorial for Delvarus, the World Eaters pit fighting champion of the 31st millennium, and later to serve in the Black Legion for all your heresy fluff nerds out there. Let me know if you know how Delvarus eventually meets his end. Post it down in the comments below. Otherwise, let's get into this tutorial. So for this section we are concentrating on the armor plates. I know it seems a bit unusual that we are working with a white miniature to undercoat the miniature black first, so I use scale 75 matte black primer on this, and then I'm using khaki as the first coverage. Building up from a black base coat ensures that all the nooks and crannies, all the shadows have a dark atmosphere to them, have a darkness to them, and we build up through the lights. It'll give us a greater overall contrast on the miniature. So I'm just concentrating on those parts of the miniature that will have white armour, and I want to give a thin, consistent coat across the entirety of his armour plates. For this next step, I've added white into the mixture, giving an overall greater value, making it this almost bone colour. If you're looking for an equivalent, try birch from scale 75, or any kind of bone colour will suit us. So for World Eaters, I really love having warm mid-tones shaded with cool shadows, which will become a bit more apparent later on in the painting process. I am covering most of the shadows and most of the midtones with this colour. I want to brighten it up to a dirty white. So most of the underlying khaki colour will be painted with this. The next stage I'll be using German Dark Grey. This is a VMC colour. I'll be placing this into the shadows. So we have a warm mid-tone and warm just upper level of shadows, and then we have using a cold tone, so something a grey with quite a lot of blue in there to shadow the miniature. So we have that nice transition between a cold shadow, a warm mid-tone, and then a cool upper light, which is the pure white highlight, which we'll use to finish off the miniature. The white stage next. So I am using my usual white colour, Medea Comart white, opaque white. It's an airbrush colour. Do yourself a favour if you haven't used this stuff before. If you are having problems with dry tip, with your airbrush clogging, one of the reasons might be that the lighter the colour, and the more vibrant it is, the easier that will be to clog. White and black are particular problem colours. White especially, so pick yourself up some of this stuff. It's the best white I've ever used, opaque white from Medea Comart, and it airbrushes out like a dream. Thin it down with some Forge World thinner to the consistency of semi-skimmed milk, and apply this on the upper edges of the highlight. And that's it for our white. Now we'll move on to the blue. Like the World Eaters themselves, I like to keep things as uncomplicated as I possibly can. So for the blue, there's very few stages involved. I wanted to give Delvarus a stripe down his boarding shield, so I've just taped it off with Tamiya tape, and I'm using black primer again from scale 75 to hit his shoulder pads. Oh, sorry, slip of the tongue. His backpack and that blue stripe. Next stage, we need white for a pre-coat layer. This is where we put the highlights, which will underpin the colour we place on top of this. So when we add the blue, the light underneath or the white underneath will give a natural transition and a natural highlight layer for the blue. The blue I'm using is conveniently called Blue by Vallejo Air. It's a really highly pigmented blue colour. It's beautiful, it goes on so smoothly. You can use this for World Eaters and Ultramarines. Fantastic colour for those two legions. I'm just giving a nice all over even coverage spray across the backpack and the stripe. 2 to 3 even coats should do the trick. Next up, Turquoise by VMC again, by Vallejo. Again, really appropriately named. It's not skull turquoise or anything like that. It's just flat out turquoise. And I'm putting this in the upper layers of the highlight. Top of the shoulder pads. Damn, made the mistake again. Top of the backpack and top of that blue stripe. And that's it. Blue done. Best part of the project, just taking this off. So you see there's a slight bump in there, but I'll show you how to correct that later. It's not the end of the world. When we are working with miniatures, especially with this at this scale, you will inevitably encounter bumps and things of that nature. It's just a way. We need to learn how not to be freaked out by that and remask off the area to paint it perfectly. We can very easily correct those mistakes with a paintbrush. Okay, let's work on the decals. I've varnished the miniature, I've blocked in the metallic colours, which that video is available in a separate video if you just want to concentrate on the metallic process. Well, it will be up. This section is just on the armour plates alone. So the entire miniature has been varnished with gloss varnish, and now I'm putting some microsol onto the shield. I have removed the transfer with warm water, so I've placed down warm water to come off the backing paper, the backing sheet, and I'm just gently prodding that down with a brush. I'm going to allow it to cure for a few moments before I cut into the decal around the shape of the metallic portion of the shield. So my knife, I'm just opening it because there's a bump there and it's going to disfigure the decal. Well, I'm just cutting into it now. I'm being very careful not to maneuver it around, not to interrupt the rest of it. This stage can be very, very tricky. Light fingers, guys. So you can see with my left thumb, I'm just holding that in place and removing it with the blade. When it comes to this stage, with your scalpel, I would recommend having a new scalpel in the blade. We need this super, super sharp. I'm just gently removing it. Bit more micro. I was getting confused between microsol and microset. It's the blue one first. Should come as no surprise that I'm more of a visual learner, which I think most of us are here. Then with a dry Q-tip or earbud, depending on which side of the Atlantic you're on. I'm just using that to prod it down and make sure that it's as smooth a fit and bind as I possibly can. You will find a few wrinkles, so I'm just prodding that more towards the metallic surface, get rid of any excess pieces. And I'll do this 2 or 3 times just with the microsol or microset, wherever the blue one is. Just prodding it down again and again, smoothing it out, make sure there's no wrinkles. Then I'll apply microset on top. So here's the second process of the Magic Duo micro set, the red one. Apply this on top and this should smooth out the decal for us. As you can see, I've added a couple of more kill markings on there. You do exactly the same process, microsol, microset with warm water. The pin wash stage. So I'm using burnt umber in the white portions of the armor plates as well as the blue backing. The blue backpack rather. As you can see, the oil runs very neatly into all the gaps, giving an artificial shadow. When we airbrush a miniature, it does run the risk of looking very plain and very boring, and we can't quite see the outline of the sculpt. So adding this stage is essential. When we add it, it should flow into all the gaps. We need this around the consistency of drawing ink. So if you, I'm sure at school, if you've ever owned a fountain pen, you've cracked open some ink just to pass the time and spread all over your books, all over the desk, or perhaps that was just my school. But drawn ink, that's the consistency you need it, and then it'll run very nicely into the gaps. So in this video we just concentrated on the pin wash, but with the metallics we are doing a stain, which we'll explain a little bit more in the metallics video. Allow the oil to cure for about a day, 12 hours or so. Come back. It's worthwhile doing these in batches so you can come back and do them all at once. Any leftover stains, any mistakes you make is much easier to correct at this stage with a thinning agent popped on a Q-tip or with the brush. So you can see here with the brush I can manipulate the oil to where I want it to run. You can even give some really nice grease oil stain effects, which we'll see in a few moments when I start dragging some of the excess oil paint just down the white armour plates. Here you go, any excess oil, well, we can use it to our advantage, just spreading it out, spreading it down. There you go, now it's a joy forever. Okay, last step on the armour plates. I would recommend you give the miniature a matte varnish before going on to this stage. This will be the final points of light we'll add to the miniature. This will really define the armour plates. So I'm using pure white, I believe it's Formula P3 white, but whatever white will do you. Just with a brush, I'm just giving an edge highlight to all the armour plates. And I will also be using sponge chipping to give infrequent chips on the armour, because I mean it's Delvarus, of course he's going to chip his armour up, but on the whole I want to highlight or edge highlight those armour plates that would naturally pick up the most amount of light. I don't want to edge highlight everything. I don't want to I don't want to edge highlight the underside of his greaves, for example, because no light would hit there. But for on the chest here, there would naturally be a light hitting it. Here comes the sponge. I love doing this, especially on decals, because it gives it a sense of the white paint underneath being chipped away at, especially on the edges. Make sure you get those edges. Anywhere like his fists, his knuckles, wherever he kick and stomp people to death, that's where I normally place this chipping effect. And for the blue sections, I've just got the turquoise again, added a touch of white, and I'm adding this to the outer edges. Instead of a edge highlight, I'm adding an edge chipping. And that is it. Thank you so much for joining me for this portion of the tutorial. You can find the rest of the series in the Patreon vault in the tab section. I just want to thank you so much for being a Patreon for this year. It's been an incredible journey, and onward to 2018. Thank you so much. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and I will catch you in 2018. Wonder what Primarchs, wonder what it will hold for the Heresy and for painting in general. I'll catch you later.